are the players you need to add off the waiver wire coming into week 5 that will literally help you dominate, as well as some defenses at the end. We can also spot start to help us get 20 plus fantasy points, so make sure to stick around for that. Starting out with our number one out of the week is going to be Woody Marks. Coming out against the Titans, putting up 27.9 points on 17 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown, even seeing 4 receptions out of the backfield for 50 yards and another touchdown. And as I dive into this, guys, please make sure to hit that like button. It helps me and this channel out so much, and it is free to you. And we know with Woody Marks, the Titans defense is a very much run funnel of a defense here. They are allowing some of the most points to opposing running backs, so we knew they were always going to be leading in this game, having that script on offense. But if we dive into the numbers, Woody Marks is actually a little bit more efficient than Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb had 13 carries, 47 yards, 3.6 yards per carry compared to Woody Marks at 4.1. Woody saw 40 total snaps compared to Nick Chubb at 30. He ran 16 routes compared to Nick Chubb at 9. And he saw more targets because of that as well. And if you look a little bit deeper into the efficiencies, Marks, again, has generally just been the more efficient running back this season, averaging 2.8 yards after contact per attempt compared to Nick Chubb at 2.2. And Marks has also gained at least 5 yards on about 1/3 of his carries compared to Nick Chubb at 27. So there's just more efficiency there. And if we continue to look at Marks, he's probably going to keep this role that he has now, and if not, grow it. He's already working into the receiving game, some of the goal line work as well. He could possibly be a league winner, and the Texans have their bye in week 6. We know historically rookies do get more involved after the bye week because the team has more time to scheme and plan around these guys and see what is working. Woody Marks is clearly working. You need to add him off your waiver wire, just like the number one wide receiver ad of this week, which is Romeo Doubs. Rostered in less than 50% of leagues still, which doesn't make much sense. Put us up 29.8 fantasy points last week, catching 6 of 8 targets for 58 yards. Of course, his 3 touchdowns as well. Now, yes, it was a very soft Dallas Cowboys defense, and it was an overtime game, and the Packers throw the ball to literally every wide receiver that touches grass. But he's still a guy we need to roster, and there are some tangibles here that I will get into that shows that his consistency might be a little bit more normal. He ran 75 of the total 83 routes last week with 42 routes run because of that, and that is somewhat normal. Every single week, he has consistently led this team in routes run, so we do like that for him. He's also coming into his bye week now in week 5, so you're not going to be starting him. It might make people not roster him as aggressively as they should, so maybe lower your fab number because of that. But he's definitely a guy we need to be rostering through that bye week. Then he gets a beautiful matchup after it in week 6 against the Bengals, then the Cardinals and the Steelers. These are all really good matchups we can be starting him in, and they allow a lot of fantasy points to the position as well. And we still have understanding that he is a boom or bust wide receiver, but in those positive matchups, we have to pick our spots. And I will tell you, everybody's sprinting to the waiver wire to pick up Malik Naber's replacement. It sucks to see him injured. Absolutely, it does. But there isn't necessarily going to be a one-to-one replacement. Nobody is Malik Nabers. I'm here to tell you, don't spend all of your fab on Darius Slayton. Wan'Dale Robinson is probably already rostered in your league, so you don't need to just get the scraps. It is very difficult for all of these guys to be consistent, especially when you see how much Jackson Dart was rushing the ball last week, and Cam Scatterboo, everybody in this offense as well. It's just what they did on the offensive side of things. But there is one player that honestly is where they stash if you need a tight end, and that is going to be Theo Johnson, who on Dart's 20 passing attempts last week targeted him 5 times. That's a 26% team target share. Now, when you look at Theo Johnson as a player, you're going to see the targets and say, okay, he got saved by a touchdown. It didn't really look that great. But again, you look at the relative target numbers because Dart only passed 20 times. It's not as bad as it looked. Now, yes, he did get saved by a touchdown, letting him put up 10.7 fantasy points. But he's clearly the tight end 1, playing 53% of the snaps compared to the tight end 2, Daniel Bellinger at 24. He ran 19 routes compared to Bellinger at 7. So with the amount this team is going to run, they're going to have a lot of tight ends on the field, likely run a lot of 2 tight end sets. But again, with Nabers being out in an offense with a rookie quarterback, more importantly, they're probably not going to have to push the ball downfield and have super deep passing attempts, which is going to benefit the safety blanket, which is these tight ends and Theo Johnson. And we're going to be rostering him because of that as well. And you can also roster Jackson Dart because of that. 100% because of his rushing volume. This guy last week was projected for 6.5 carries versus the Chargers. Comes out and crushes that line with 10 attempts, 54 yards, and a touchdown. It's kind of like a Justin Fields situation where he doesn't need to be a great passer. You look last week, only 13 completions for 111 yards. That will continue to be better with time. It's just how rookie quarterbacks go. And another top ad outside of that you need to make is Kendre Miller, who's been in and out of waiver videos for probably a couple years, really, since he's been in the league. But this time it is different. His snaps have been increasing every single week. The Bills It was a relatively close game, and he saw a season high in everything: 11 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown, finishing with 12.5 fantasy points compared to Kamara at 11.2, which makes it look like a little bit of a closer split than it really was. Kamara still led with 15 carries, 70 yards, 5 targets to Miller's 0 targets, and he saw 49 snaps compared to Miller's 29. But still, there is room for Miller in this offense because he is the more efficient running back so far this year. He's averaging more yards per carry than Kamara is, more yards after contact per attempt, twice as many avoided tackles per attempt, and a higher touchdown rate. All of these things are very positive, and his issues have always been staying healthy. He's 23, still relatively young compared to Kamara, who is 30. But the reason that's important is because the Saints are 0-4 to start the year right now. It would not be surprising if this team does slow down Alvin Kamara's usage, especially later down the line of the season when they're not playing for any type of contention. We saw the same thing last year. So I definitely would be stashing him for that upside. If he can stay healthy, he's going to return you value. But another top guy that we do need to be adding that might be a little bit too disrespected is Dalton Schultz for the short term. This Texans team just beat up on the Titans 26-0. So that level of offense probably is not going to be average for them. But ever since Cade Stover got injured in week 1, Dalton Schultz has been a complete tight end and solid guy for this team. Over 5 targets average without him and 80% of the snaps. Now, when Stover comes back, he's probably not going to be a guy we want to start, but he's the only tight end that's running routes in this offense right now. Harrison Bryant only ran 2 routes compared to Schultz at 28. There's seriously no competition here. And the offensive line is getting crushed. Part of the reason why Nico Collins is not as much of a dominant guy as we'd want him to be, because you can't let the routes develop downfield. CJ Stroud doesn't have a lot of time to pass, and it's forced him to be averaging 10.5 yards per completion. That's quarterback 22 on the year. He's going to really make sure that short to intermediate game is going to get a ton of targets because there's not much else you can really do, which is why the safety blankets in tight ends are getting an increase in targets, and he gets a great matchup against the Ravens in week 5, who are top 3 in fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. So a great short-term add until their week 6 bye, and then Cade Stover comes back after that. And another sleeper, 100% if you're in a deeper league here, is going to be Isaiah Bond, leading the Browns in receiving last week versus the Lions. Now, if you want more sneaky ads like this, make sure to be subscribed to get this video and many more like it all season long, as well as our live streams with everybody on the team. And while you do that, this dude has completely worked himself into a starting spot, finishing second on the team in snaps with 37 and 27 routes on those snaps. Clearly number 2 behind Jerry Jeudy. Now, a lot of that is thanks to Cedric Tillman, who was injured with a hamstring earlier in that game. Now, depending on how serious that is going to depend on how serious of a must-add Isaiah Bond is. He has completely beat out Jamari Thrash for this number 3 wide receiver, so even when he is healthy, he will have somewhat of an opportunity, and he is climbing up the depth chart on a team that is second in passing attempts on the year, and that is not going to change with Joe Flacco. He's getting a tougher matchup this week in week 5, but he is still a stash on this team. And some defenses we can go through and add, the part of the video you've been waiting for. You can stream the Arizona Cardinals. Now, it is a little bit dry out there on the waiver wire for streaming defenses, so they should be your number 1 option. Probably sprinkle a little bit more fab on them because of that. And they get a matchup here against the Titans, who have been top 3 in fantasy points allowed to the defenses so far. They're 0-4. Nothing is really going great for them, so the Cardinals, as a pretty decent internal unit themselves, is a great option. And the second best streaming option is going to be the Colts, rostered in less than 30% of leagues, getting a matchup against the Raiders, who, another team who is bottom 5. They allow so many points to opposing defenses, and a lot of this is because Geno Smith has thrown 7 interceptions in 4 games. If he's throwing 3 against the Bears defense, imagine what will happen against the Indianapolis Colts, a team that's already 6th in interceptions forced per game. And make sure to be subscribed to this channel for more start sits based on defenses, players, everything else. That is going to finish out this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one coming very soon.